Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay, I don't know. Hey guys, my name's Connor. If you're new, hope everyone's doing well. I want to learn right now. Why don't the Channel Islands belong to France? Something tells me, I might sound stupid here, but I think I've heard it before, that this goes back really far. Like 100 years war far. I could be completely wrong there and look really stupid later, but that I feel like I've heard that before. Let's go, let's learn.
Why are these islands a part of the UK and not France? The Channel Islands sit just a few miles off the coast of France, yet they remain a fiercely loyal British Crown dependency. It is through a fascinating series of historical twists and turns, over a period of more than 1,000 years, that they remain a proud British territory. Back to the time of William the Conqueror, the bitter battles fought between the two nations over the following centuries, and the period they were known as the Norman Isles. Here, we'll explore the history.
Okay, so I did remember correctly. It did go back this far.
Of these islands, which, though small,
Hold on, were they really this close shooting arrows at each other?
provide a fascinating glimpse into the dramatic and persistent Anglo-French rivalry and changing tides of fortune between the parties over the centuries. The first significant historical period of back and forth between England and France comes with the Norman conquest. The islands were seized around 933 AD by William Longsword, which crucially brought them into the Duchy of Normandy. As a result, when William the Conqueror became King of England in 1066, they became part of his new Anglo-Norman kingdom, marking their first initial affiliation with the nation. This was also a period which set in place many of the legal and administrative practices, which persisted as relics into modern times. The first key loss of the islands to the French crown came in 1204, when King John of England, an inheritor of the Norman kingdom, lost them to King Philip II of France. The occupation would be relative.
King John? King John of England? Well, I can learn later. Why? John Lackland. That sounds more familiar.
Relatively brief, lasting no Philip II of France. The occupation would be relatively brief, lasting no more than 2 years though, with King John soon realizing their strategic significance and successfully recapturing them. As well as newfound military importance, Jersey and Guernsey would also experience an economic boom through the 13th century, as it served as a stop-off point for ships carrying goods across the channel between France and England. The period would see more intrepid voyages too, on the part of the Channel Island inhabitants, who established routes to the rich fishing waters off Iceland. As early as 1246, locals were documenting.
Wait, why would they be a big stopping point between ships between France and England? Like trade ships? I mean, they're so close. What's the point?
Waters off Iceland. As early as 1246, locals were documented making this journey regularly, returning with their valuable catch to be sold to both the English and French. These were lucrative enterprises, which helped fuel a population boom, as well as further recognition of the island's strategic and economic importance. It would also set in place a trend of intrepid seafaring, which would bring benefits for the Channel Islanders on European discovery of the New World too. Though the 13th century brought prosperity to the Channel Islands, with booming trade and thriving seafaring ventures, the island's fortunes were soon to change. The outbreak of the 100 Years' War would bring a new round of conflict that would envelop the islands. This began 1 year following the outbreak of war, when, in 1338, a French force led by Admiral Béhuchet landed on Jersey. What followed was a massive mass pillage, which included a devastation of the island's corn crop. However, in the face of islanders' opposition, the French weren't able to get a foothold, and soon made off for other when in the islands. This began 1 year following the outbreak of war, when in 1338.
I thought corn... Isn't corn, like potatoes and tomatoes, a crop that was only available to Europeans when the Americas were discovered? This is before 1492. So how would they have corn crops?
A French force led by Admiral Béuchet landed on Jersey. What followed was a mass pillage, which included a devastation of the island's corn crop. However, in the face of islanders' opposition, the French weren't able to get a foothold, and soon made off for other targets. In recognition of their resistance and loyalty to the crown, the islanders were granted their old unique rights by English King Edward III. These maintained the Channel Islands' semi-autonomy and their division from the rest of the English realm, a process which would be continued under the successive monarchs, cementing the Channel Islands' somewhat unique legal status. In the midst of the conflict affecting the islands during the 100 Years' War, the plague would also reach Jersey and Guernsey.
Guys, so does semi-autonomy essentially just mean you can govern yourself how you want, but if there's something I need or something, I'm just going to come and take over? So it's like, until I really need you for some purpose, you can rule yourself. But in the end, I can tell you what to do.
Around 13 Years' War, the plague would also reach Jersey and Guernsey around 1348, with devastating results. If death records of northern France are anything to go by, then it is likely up to 40% of islanders were claimed by this fearsome disease. This would contribute to a period...
I had to get my drink.
Around 1348, with devastating results. If death records of northern France are anything to go by, then it is likely up to 40% of islanders were claimed by this fearsome disease. This would contribute to a period of economic decline and stagnation, far removed from the boom years of the 1200s. The conclusion of the 100 Years' War in 1453 would bring only brief respite, with the political landscape shifting once again as England plunged into its own internal struggle, the Wars of the Roses. This would soon impact the islands, with a French force taking advantage of relative British weakness at this point due to their internal conflict, invading and holding Jersey between 1461 and 1468, before being repelled by Yorkist and militia forces. The conclusion of the War of the Roses brought two separate charters of privilege for the islands, granted by King Edward IV, which pulled the islands further into the English orbit. This was consolidated with a papal bull granted to King Henry VII in 1496, which transferred the authority of bishops over the islands from France to England. He would be the last English king.
A papal bull allowed
King Henry.
Yeah, just fast forward if you want.
Orbit. This was consolidated with a papal bull granted to King Henry VII in 1496, which transferred the authority of bishops over the islands from France to England.
So, like a decree? It is a decree. Okay, it's a public decree, charter, or letter, patent issued by the Catholic Church Pope. Okay, so it was just... It's a decree that the Pope can send to give certain power over religious people and stuff. Okay.
He would be the last English king to seek the authority of the papacy, though with his son, Henry VIII, soon to move against the authority of the Catholic Church with his formation of the Church of England. Henry's embrace of the rising wave of Protestantism across the continent, albeit for largely personal reasons, would carry the islands with him. Their embrace of this new church also helped ensure an increasingly unbridgeable divide between Catholic France and the newly Protestant islands. The island's status as a Protestant bastion would be furthered, as many French Huguenots fleeing prosecution in mainland France used them as an initial haven in their escape, either to England or the New World. The emergence of the English...
I'm not going to stop and look them up again, but Huguenots so clearly are not a Catholic affiliated branch of Christians. Oh, I really want to look it up. I'll look it up after.
Civil War in the mid-17th or the New World.
Cromwell?
The emergence of the English Civil War in the mid-17th century would present a new challenge for the Channel Islands. By now, the population was used to intermittent hostilities between England and France. They were not accustomed, though, to internal war in Britain itself. This would throw Guernsey and Jersey at times into the center of the bitter battle unfolding in Britain. There was
and would also maybe make it more tempting for the French to take them back over if the UK is occupied with its civil war.
Split times into the center of the bitter battle unfolding in Britain. There was a split in support between parliamentarians and royalists on the islands, much like the rest of the nation. However, Jersey remained a royalist stronghold for the most part, at least at the level of its leadership. This was reflected in a visit to the island by future King Charles II following his father's execution. Here in 1649, he was proclaimed rightful king among the local inhabitants in the town square, to cheers of celebration and a jubilant atmosphere. No doubt this helped to swell the islanders' sense of pride in being the venue for such an occasion, not to mention the strengthening of their loyalty to the English nation, which was near unshakable by this point.
Wait, why didn't the Cromwell's people, parliamentarians, why did they allow the heirs of Charles I to survive at all?
Jersey and Guernsey were both eventually taken by parliamentarian forces during the course of the English Civil War. Jersey, in fact, as the last remaining loyalist stronghold in the whole of the British Isles, drew much attention from London, with a fleet of 84 ships and 8,000 men dispatched in 1651 to retake it. This was a large continent, and both a declaration of parliamentarian power, but also recognition of the continued importance of the Channel Islands. Victory was swift for Cromwell's forces, with a fairly muted resistance and light casualties on both sides. A period of tension and distrust during Puritan rule followed. Cromwell's soldiers from the mainland supposedly engaged in looting, as well as disrespecting the church services carried out in a local French dialect, which they could not understand. The restoration of the monarchy under King Charles II brought reprieve and benefits for the Channel Islands. The new king would not forget their loyalty and reaffirmed their status as a crown dependency, separate to the realm of Britain, something Cromwell and the Puritans had been attempting to undo. This was now the age of exploration, too, with shipping increasingly traveling to the west coast of Africa, East Indies, and New World. Channel Islanders had a foothold in the Hudson Bay area of Canada since the earliest days, helping build out this trade route to the area's rich fishing grounds. The perilous voyage was made almost exclusively in small fishing vessels, to give an idea of the tenacity and enterprising spirit of the Channel Island inhabitants. There were, however, ample economic rewards, with the valuable catch sold back to English and French markets. Jersey also enjoyed being in the privileged position of importing wool to England during a time when it was unable to source the valuable commodity from Europe, due to being in a state of war with many of these nations. This gave rise to the use of the term Jersey in reference to a woolen sweater, which persists to this day. These connections...
Really? So New Jersey means new woolen sweater?
connections to the in reference to a woolly's named Sweater, which persists to this day. These connections to the New World would come back to play a role on home soil before too long, though. During the American War of Independence and concurrent Anglo-French conflict, the last significant French invasion of the islands would be made. First, a landing was attempted in May 1779, but was repelled at St. Juan's Bay with the effective use of grape shot from the defenders' cannon. This was followed by a more determined French invasion in 1781, which captured St. Helier, the capital of Jersey, in a dawn raid. They would be fairly quickly defeated by the British Army in the Battle of Jersey, which followed in January, though, when a force under Major Francis Pearson was dispatched to deal with the situation. The battle took place in the narrow streets of the capital, with the British forces advancing on French troops up the main promenade. Only around 15 minutes of fighting followed, with the French discharging the cannon they had assembled no more than twice each. French forces were soon overwhelmed by superior English numbers and suffered losses of around 150 killed or wounded and 600 captured. This small yet decisive battle would mark the end of a long period of French attempts on the island. In the wake of the French Revolution and seizing of power by Napoleon, a new period of conflict would emerge between the two nations. Given the intensity of the Napoleonic Wars and the fact of the Channel Islands' highly strategic position, it seems strange Napoleon didn't seek to take them during the course of the conflict.
Yeah, because they were taken successfully by the Germans in World War II, right?
The answer as to why probably lies in a few factors. Firstly, the island has been heavily reinforced by the British through the 18th century, with capable gun batteries at harbors, offering good defense. The local militia, by this point, was also fairly capable, and could muster as many as 3,000 men in 24 hours.
Also, even if you were able to conquer them, I mean, you're in the English Channel. Even if you were able to conquer them, the British Navy is unmatched and could just bombard the hell out of it if it was captured. Maybe they would have... No, that's the...
This not including the serving British troops who were stationed on the island. Lastly, British naval power and their allocation of value to the islands meant a rapid response was generally ready to come to Jersey and Guernsey's aid, should the French mount an attempt. While the islands of Jersey and Guernsey would be occupied by German forces during World War II, the French would never again get a grip on them. This unique island chain, just miles off the French coast, resisted every foreign occupation attempt, managing to maintain its defiant spirit and loyalty to Britain throughout. Due to the island's highly strategic position, it punched far above its weight in terms of the significance of the historical role it played, given its size. This meant it often found itself at the center of violence, as in the 100 Years' War and Anglo-French Wars of the late 1700s. The islanders' unique spirit of resistance saw them through the centuries of conflict and helped ensure the maintaining of their unique status as a crown dependency, with the privileges this brought. This has led to a characterful and historically rich territory, which maintains its unique culture into the present day, though now more commonly playing host to tourist boats arriving at the harbors rather than invading fleets. Thank you for watching our video.
Thank you for
You can support our work by becoming a member on YouTube or on Patreon. Links below in the description.
Very interesting. Nalegia, amazing channel. And I've seen some tourism videos I've seen some videos on what it's like on these Channel Islands, and it's beautiful, and it reminds me of places like Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket over here, but even better since they seem to be much bigger and have more things to do on them. So great video. Love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you learned something or can teach me something in the comments. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye.